Welcome to Drive the Daf, clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Eruvin Daf Pei Dalid is discussing the halacha of a rishus, an area of some sort, that's sandwiched between two other rishuyos. As we have seen previously, the halacha is that if both rishuyos have equal difficulty or ease accessing the middle rishus, so then it belongs to both rishuyos, in which case if there's no eruv chaseres between them, neither of them are allowed to use it. It's a jointly owned rishus, you're not allowed to carry into or out of that rishus. However, if one of the two rishuyos has greater ease accessing it than the other one, then it's considered to be belonging to that rishus, and that rishus is allowed to consider it solely his. The other one that is more difficult to access it is out, and therefore it's completely his, he's allowed to use it on Shabbos. The question became, what happens in a case where you have a rishus that is mid-height between two other rishus? There's one rishus that's 10 tvachim below it, and there's one rishus that's 10 tvachim above it. Are they considered to be equally difficult? If you have to use it by lowering down to it by a rope, is that as difficult as having to use it by throwing up to it from the bottom? Or is one of them more difficult or easier than the other? So the Gemara had said, so between Rav and Shmuel. According to Rav, it's considered to be equally easy for both of them to use it, and therefore it's forbidden. According to Shmuel, it's easier to use it by lowering to it than a rope, and therefore it's considered to be part of the one who's above the middle rishus than it is to the one that's below it, and therefore belongs to him. Now, we had a Mishnah, and we have two brises coming up, and we're going to try to prove from these three things, the Mishnah and the two brises, like either Rav or Shmuel's opinion. So in our Mishnah, we had seen a case where you have a platform that serves people who live on the second floor of a building. They, in order to get to their apartment, which is in the second floor, they have to go up from the street to the platform, and then from the platform into their second floor house. And the platform is midway between the street level, the chutzner, and the upper rishus. At least that's what we assumed. It's 10 tvachim above the floor, and it's 10 tvachim below the doorways of the upper ones. And yet we had seen that halacha was clear in the Mishnah, that it belongs to the people who live on the upper floor. They can consider it part of their rishus. That seemed to be a clear proof to Shmuel. Now there are other cases in the brisa, in the Mishnah as well. The Mishnah had also said that if you have a stone in the chutzner, which is 10 tvachim high, it belongs to the people on the upper floor. And if it's less than 10 tvachim high, then it goes to the people in the yard. And same applies to a rim around the well, which is several tvachim high. We see an exception to that, which we'll see later on. Now the question then is that we have a clear proof to Shmuel that this middle level thing goes to the people that are above it. So Rav Huna answers, no, we're not talking about where it's 10 tvachim below the upper floor, guys. It's actually on the same level as the people on the upper floor. Their apartment opens straight out on the same height as this platform itself, and therefore it's not considered, they don't have to go down, they don't have to lower themselves to use it. Therefore, it's not the case we are discussing. That's why it belongs to those on the upper floor, but really if it would be that they had to go down, it would be considered just as difficult as the ones that have to come up from below. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, so then how come if you have a rock in the yard which is less than 10 tvachim high, why does that belong to the people of the chutzner? That's equally accessible to those on the upper floor and those on the floor, on the ground floor. It should be equally accessible to both of them. And if it's equally accessible, then it's forbidden for each of them if there's no eruv chaseres. Meaning, I understand if it's the people on the upper floor have to go down out of their house, have to go down a ladder to get to the platform, so that if it's less than 10 tvachim, the rock that's in the yard, so then it's too far for them. But if you're telling me that they're just 10 tvachim above the ground level, so why can't they use the stone? Even if it's, let's say, 5 tvachim high, it's equally distant for those on the ground level as it is for them. So the Gemara answers, you're right, and that is the halacha. When it says that it belongs to the people of the chutzner, it doesn't mean it belongs solely to them and they're allowed to use it. It means it belongs equally to them as much as it belongs to the people in the upper floor, as opposed to the previous case which belonged only to the upper floor people. And therefore, since it's equidistant to both of them and it belongs equally to both of them, they're both forbidden and neither of them are allowed to use it. And the Gemara says, I could even prove to you that this is logical, that this is what the Mishnah means. Because further on in the Mishnah, it says that if the stone is 10 tvachim high, in which we said that it belongs to those on the upper floor, that's only if it's up against their platform. If it is distant from their platform, then it doesn't belong to them, it belongs to the people of the chutzner. So now, how do you understand that? Just because it's distant from the platform doesn't mean that it only belongs to the ones in the chutzner. There's a difficulty for both of them. The ones in the chutzner have to reach upwards, they have to throw upwards in order to use the platform. The ones on the yard have to throw because it's distant. The ones on the upper floor have to throw to get to it a little bit because it's distant from their platform. They both have a difficulty. It should be equal. So why would it belong only to the chutzner people? It must be that it belongs also to the chutzner people. That's what we mean. And therefore it's forbidden to use. And then the cases of the Mishnah all fit in. They're all saying when we say that it belongs to the people in the chutzner, we mean also to them, and therefore it belongs equally to both. And it's forbidden for everybody to use. The Gemara now brings another raya from the next case in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says if you have a well in the yard, and the well has a rim around it, which is 10 tvachim high, so then it goes to the people who live on the upper floor. Now, hold on a second. In order to draw water from the well, the people on the upper floor also have to lower down into the well with a rope. The only difference between them and the guys on the ground floor is that the guys on the ground floor have to go up and over the rim. They have to go upwards, but the other ones still have to lower. So you see that just lowering is easier than having to go up. That's again a proof to Shmuel that lowering is easier than going up, and that's why it belongs to the guys on the upper floor. So Gemara answers, no, we're not talking about a well where they have to lower. We're talking about a well that's filled all the way up to the top of the rim of the ledge, and therefore they don't have to lower anything if they're on the upper floor. So Gemara says, well, hold on a second, it's going to become less over Shabbos, and then it should be forbidden for them. Gemara says, well, it began Shabbos full, so therefore it's not a problem even if it becomes less later. So Gemara says, no, the opposite is true. If it's going to become less later, then it should be forbidden even in the beginning of Shabbos, when it's full. So Gemara says, okay, we'll give you another answer. It's not talking about a well filled with water, we're talking about a well filled with fruits. So Gemara says, so they don't need to lower anything. So Gemara says, a well filled with fruits also gets lower. So Gemara says, no, it's tevel fruits. It's non-kosher, and therefore it's forbidden. It's muktzah on Shabbos, it's not going to get lower. Why do you have to mention this case? That's just like a rock. A rock is useless. This is useless. What's the difference? The difference is that you may think that we should make Xera. Maybe it's going to get lower, and therefore it's forbidden for the upper people to use it because it'll be equally difficult then for the upper people and the lower people, and therefore the Chiddush is you don't have to make Xera like that. Okay, that's the end of the proofs from the Mishnah. Now we go to a Brisa. The Brisa discusses people who live inside the same building, some on the lower floor, some on the upper floor, and they want to use the wall. So the Mishnah says, right, they want to store things in the hole in the wall. So which part of the wall are they allowed to use? So the Brisa says the bottom 10 tefachim belongs to those on the lower floor. From the floor of the upper apartment and 10 tefachim downward belongs to the people on the upper floor. They could reach to within 10 tefachim below them. So the language here implies that in the middle belongs to neither of them, because it doesn't say. It says that the lower 10 tefachim to the lower floor, the upper 10 tefachim to the upper floor. So you see, the middle one is equally difficult for both of them, and it can't be used by either of them. But what do you mean? That's used by those who come down and those who have to reach upwards. Obviously, going down and going up is equally difficult. We don't say that it's easier for those people to go down and reach than it is for those at the bottom to reach upward. Gemara says, no, this is talking about a case where the whole wall is less than 20 tefachim high. Therefore, there is no middle ground. If there would be a middle ground, you'd be right. The only space that's between the two is an overlap, and therefore it's equally easy for both of them, and that's not what we were discussing over here. Okay, we now introduce the third brisa and its raya. This is a case of two porches, literal porches that extend out of upper floors, and the porches are overhanging a body of water, a lake of some sort, and they want to draw water up from the lake to the porch so that the people in the apartments could use it. What's the problem? The lake is a Carmelist, the porches are a Rishos HaYachid, and you're not allowed to transfer the water from a Carmelist to a Rishos HaYachid. So there's a special solution that Chazal created, and said that they're allowed to make what's called a Mechitza Teluya. They're allowed to create walls extending upwards or downwards from the porch that enclose an area 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. And they are 10 tefachim high, these walls, and although they're on the porch, or they're off the porch, and they don't extend down into the lake, usually that would not be good, because walls have to extend all the way downward, In this case, we'll allow it for a special kula to allow people to reach their water. So now the case that the Brisa discusses is what happens if the people on the upper porch made walls and the people on the lower porch did not make any walls. So what happens? People on the lower porch want to use the walls for those on the upper porch. In order for them to do that, they have to throw their pail upwards to the upper porch and let it down by rope through that hole, and it goes all the way down into the water. Now, the water below these walls is considered to be part of Rosh Hashanah. We're legally allowing it to be considered as if the walls extend all the way down, and therefore it's a walled-in area in the lake, and it's a Rosh Hashanah. Now, the people on the upper floor just have to lower a rope. The people on the lower porch have to go up and then down. So you see that in order for them to go up and down, you would think that it would be considered harder for them, and therefore the area inside the lake should belong solely to those on the upper floor. But that's not what the Brisa says. The Brisa said it's considered to be equal for both of them, and it's equally shared by both of them. Clearly a proof that if you just have to go up, it's certainly not any harder than if you just have to go down, because here you have to go up and down, and it's not considered harder. Okay, so here we have a clear proof that up and down is equally difficult. So how do you explain this? So Rav Adabarava says, no, we're not talking about it here where they have to go up to the upper porch and then lower their cleat down. They don't have to throw the pail upwards and then lower it downwards. We're talking about where they have a ladder, they go up to the upper porch and they draw from there. So they use the hole, they use the walls just as easily as those on the upper porch do. That's why the ground, the area within the lake that they're drawing the water from is considered to be equally accessible to both of them. Abai says, I'll give you a different answer. Abai says the two porches are within 10 tefachim height of each other. Any situation where it's within 10 tefachim of each other is automatically forbidden. It's automatically considered equal. It's got to be that the difference between the levels of the two reshuyos is greater than 10 tefachim. Otherwise, we say any difference in effort is insignificant. And that's what's happening over here. And the chiddush is that not only if the porches are different heights, and they made a walls for those on the lower porch and not the upper porch, that they're both sharing those walls, that over there we say that it's forbidden, even if it is similar heights, they're within 10 tefachim, and they made the walls for the upper porch, still we say that it's not considered to be separate, and they are considered to be shared. It's not considered like it belongs to one of them and not the other one, and therefore it's forbidden for both of them to use it, because again it's an area that has not had Erev Chatzeres on it. Now Abai says, where do you see this concept that two porches or two areas that are within 10 tefachim height of each other are considered to be equal, even if there's some other rishus that is different than them? So we see it from a case of Rav Nachman and Amos Shmuel. Somebody has a roof over his house, and a couple of tefachim lower than his roof, he's got a porch, got a platform of some sort, and a couple of tefachim below that is Rosh Hashanah. So the people on Rosh Hashanah, the porch doesn't run along the entire roof, so part of the roof is exposed directly to Rosh Hashanah. And the people in Rosh Hashanah like to use the roof to adjust their burdens, to rest a little bit. So the people over there, they want to use this roof as well. Now the problem here is that because the people from Rosh Hashanah use it, it's considered like they have access to it. The platform doesn't belong to those on the upper floor or the guy who owns the house under it, even though he's using it. Rashi says there's an upper floor here that's using this platform as well, even though the Gemara doesn't spell that out. But because the people in Rosh Hashanah use it, so what ends up happening is that it's shared between Rosh Hashanah people and the people on the upper floor, and therefore in the Erev Chatzeres, you don't have one, the platform becomes forbidden. So the guy who uses the platform wants to keep the Rosh Hashanah people out. So what does he have to do? So the Brisa says he has to install a permanent ladder from his house to the platform. That shows that it's his. It's much easier for him to use it than the platform, and then the Rosh Hashanah Chevra, and maybe they'll even see it and they won't use it. And that way, it's easy for him. It's hard for them. They have to go up in order to reach it. It's 10 tefachim high, and therefore we don't have an issue. Now, Abaya says, hold on a second. Look at this. We said there's a porch here. So why is it without the porch? This platform is 10 tefachim high. The people in Rosh Hashanah have to reach upwards to use it. How come it's considered to be equally theirs, and therefore it would be forbidden, if not for the latter. They have to reach upwards. Reaching upwards is a difficult thing to do. It should belong to those that are on its level. Must be the reason is because there's a platform, there's a porch in between, and it's less than 10 tvachim from the ground to the porch, and less than 10 tvachim from the porch to the roof, to this upper platform, and therefore everything's within 10 tvachim of each other, and therefore the people in Rosh Hashanah have equal access to it, because it's within 10 tvachim. It's a proof to my idea that if it's less than 10 tvachim height, we don't say any of this difficult for him, easy for him business. So Gemara says, not so fast. Maybe I'll tell you a different reason. Maybe the people in Rosh Hashanah only use it to adjust their head covering, their hat, and their scarf, and their tichel, whatever cloth they wear on their heads. That's light. That's easy. If they rest that on the wall, that's easy. It's not a big deal. It's not considered to be difficult. And therefore, the whole 10 tvachim height thing is not an issue, even without Abaye's chiddush, that as long as the platforms are within a certain height of each other, it's not a big deal.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.